Hi everybody, in a rush here, where I'm in a rush. Welcome back to the collective. I am Dust Salvador, and this is Macintosh plus Floral Shoppe. And let me tell you why this is a really cool, good thing. Um, there's a lot of music out there. There is. There's a lot out there. A lot of stuff. A lot of music. A lot of stuff. A lot of things. A lot of stuff. And basically, I feel like as of recently, a lot of people are kind of in the music industry, kind of like, well, where do we go from here? We kind of done everything we can do. And I feel like they're ignoring a lot of things that happen to already be out there sometimes. And whether it be Vocaloid, whether it be noise music to an extent, I feel like it's a bit more well known at this point. And also Vaporwave and stuff. And as well as all its subgenres Vaporwave, Mallsoft, etc., etc., etc. And this is arguably one of the albums that started off this whole movement of vaporwave back in the early 2000 teens. And it's definitely a very unique sound and style of music. If you want to be super technical, it is not really a genre; it's a subgenre of plunderphonics, but it's separate enough that it's its own genre. And there's also kind of contradicts itself because plunderphonics is a style of music that is described by its heavy use of samples, and there's a lot of vaporwave out there that actually is not sample based, but is original. Although it started as sample based, so it kind of it's its own pocket right now. It's in its own. It's got its own thing now, and again, this is one of the first albums, very old album that kind of started off this whole thing. Um, Basically, what vaporwave is, for people who don't know very quickly, is they utilize a lot of 80s synth pop, a lot of jazz, a lot of other things similar, and they slow it down and they kind of chop and screw it, and it kind of creates its own very euphoric, sometimes eerie, sometimes very disco based sound. Um, it's quite unique, and it's one of those things that they don't like you till you try it, pretty much. And this is not a bad place to start, not at all. Um, I would usually give up the track names, but they are all in Japanese, as is part of the style of the medium. You know, a lot of kanji characters being used rather than actual English sometimes. That's the other thing. Vaporwave has a very unique visual aesthetic a lot of the time, and so I'll just be the most I can do is track one, track two, so on and so forth. So track one starts off with um, very, I have to say, sleazy, I guess, some saxophone stuff, really cool stuff, and it's not really it's slowed down a bit, obviously, but if you haven't heard the song it's sampled in probably 30 years, like most likely you haven't, um, it might come across a bit nostalgic, and it does. It comes across a bit nostalgic, definitely. And then it's not till later in the song where slowly, it starts to eventually chop it and screw it and stuff. And what it ends up doing is a lot of the vocals are pitched way down. And it doesn't seem exactly inhuman. Like, there are definitely people who could sing that low, but it just, either way, it comes across very, depending on the person, could be euphoric, could be a little eerie, could be calming. It really depends on who it is. But it's 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 not as jarring. Like some vaporwave releases, they do a lot of what they're supposed to do, chopping, screwing, all that kind of stuff. And one of the reasons why this is a good place to start off is because it's not so abrupt, so upfront. It slowly eases you into this to the tropes and styles the genre has. Definitely a good starter track. On the next track, track two again, don't know. Samples Diana Ross's Remove, and it's a lot more. It's a lot longer, and probably only uses probably like a minute total, maybe, of the original song, and you got a 7, almost 8 minute song over here, and it's pretty much its own song. It doesn't really, besides from the melodies it's using, it doesn't really sound similar. I guess it's got its own structure. Um, there's some really the lyrics in the song really tend to kind of explain a lot what vaporwave, at least the sound wise, has to offer and kind of what it's about kind of thing. A lot of lyrics like it's all in your head and you're running out of time, you know. It's your just just very euphoric and stuff, etc. Um, really nice cool panning at the end, and it's definitely a headphone album. It's definitely a headphone album or a speaker surround sound album. Either one, definitely what you should be doing. Not exactly ideal to be putting out of your subpar phone speaker, but you can if you want. It's not ideal, anyways. Track 4 samples. No, sorry, track 3. I'm getting ahead of myself. Um, it's a full like 3 minute song from like a 20-second sample, and I wouldn't call it polyrhythms, but it's using a lot of time change stuff where they're changing out of like keyboards and the other parts of the sample. They're changing different parts near the end where they'll kind of slow one part down but keep one part the same speed or vice versa. So it kind of gives it a polyrhythmic kind of feel, even though they're not really doing polyrhythms. At least not doing it and they're not playing them themselves. It's just just they're moving. Whatever. They're moving more that lines up, music stuff. So it's also kind of funky, to be honest. And that's the thing with vaporwave. You can have stuff that's more smooth jazz, more just ambient electronic stuff that's more euphoric, so that's more disco based, so it's more noisy, more industrial. But in general, it's very calming stuff usually at its core. Um, Track 4 samples Need a Hero. I forget. I honestly forget the people who originally did the song. This one is less eerie, more calm, as the first track is a little eerie, and the lyrics on the second track is a bit, not eerie, but very, deep or so. Whatever. At this point, it's a lot less calm, or a lot less eerie and more calm, and very calm. ADD brain. The fifth track samples a track from a dinosaur game from the N64, and that's another thing is that Vaporwave doesn't always sample music from jazz artists or pop artists from the 80s and 90s. Sometimes with the video samples, which also fits the vibe really well. And this one starts off honestly a little noisy, a little bit noisy, and I feel like with Vaporwave, at least for me, it's almost like mashups in a way, where if you're listening to a mashup song, unless it's really really good on its own, which is not often, but still often enough. Most times mashups, it's more about if you already know the song, it comes across a lot better. Like, oh, I didn't expect that song to pop in with this backing track for this song, or etc. etc. It's the same kind of thing. I feel like with this it's with Vaporwave it's very similar, and you can get pure enjoyment out of it on its own. But I feel like if you know the songs, it does have a very similar bonus to if you're listening to mashups, which are also a lot of time really good. For reference, I have a script right now. Usually I don't go off scripts, so I'm trying to look down, I'm trying to find where I am, so I'm stuttering a lot. I apologize. Still trying to find out what works. I am sorry. Why does this happen? Track 6. Really euphoric. Not really much else to add. It's euphoric, and this is kind of one of the tracks that to me very it's the sound of Vaporwave. This is what you'd expect most of the time and stuff. Track 7, a little noisy, a little bit noisy. It's a bit industrial at the start, very eerie, actually very industrial at the start, and then it kind of progresses very slowly into this very calm, jazzy, a little bit of Caribbean, euphoric just thing. The industrial bent kind of, well, not even industrial song. It's purely industrial, kind of fades away, and it kind of slowly blends into this a lot more calming euphoric piece. And near the end, it kind of fades, kind of reverses back in to be industrial again. That's really really interesting. Track 8, out of the 11, um, is almost Weather Channel music. It's very much like something you hear on the Weather Channel. And it's very short. And at this point, we get to track 9, which samples a track from another old Sega Saturn game. Whatever Tri-Rush Debbie is, I never played it. It was this point where I was thinking, alright, it's kind of no overstaying welcome, but I was in the thought of, is something going to happen yet? And I was rewarded a lot, because those two tracks were short and serve as a break, and track 10, the second to last, actually is untitled. It loses untitled, and so is the actual last one. Track 10 explodes, for lack of a better word. Very euphoric. The low voices are back, and they weren't actually on the album since the beginning. A lot of the middle has them in those voices, and in that short amount of time, it almost feels like an old friend. It's almost really hard to describe, but it's definitely it's definitely impactful, especially if you're just kind of zoning out and taking the music in, not really thinking about what they're doing technically. It's very interesting, and across the whole album, it tends to go between calm and eerie, like back and forth. It tends to really like morph back and forth. It's really interesting, and it doesn't really sound out of place either. It actually is done very phenomenally, and it fits everything else right. And last track, track 11, very chaotic, very eerie, and it's only about a minute or two, and then it just ends and cuts off, and almost like to wake you up from the dream you're experiencing. And honestly, that's about it. To be honest, I'm in a bit of a rush, so I can't dwell too long. And also, besides that, I'm thinking about a lot of other stuff, so I'm fumbling a bit with my words. Sorry about that. Gotta get a video out at some point. Can't keep waiting around forever. This album, I definitely give, I'd say an 8, definitely an 8. And that's about it. I'll see you in the next one. Yeah.